Okay.
So, may I start?
Yes.
Make yourself comfortable. Then I'm going to start. Hi guys. So now I can start. So hi, welcome. And today I would like to explore the depth of one of Beethoven's late work, Diabelli Variations, focusing on the concept of subjectivity as viewed through Theodor Adorno's insightful perspective. While we'll only be able to touch just the surface of Beethoven's Diabelli Variation due to its time constraints, we'll explore how Adorno's views align with Beethoven's late music. Our lecture will revolve around Adorno's philosophical ideas regarding Beethoven's late style. We'll examine how Beethoven's Diabelli Variations and his personal struggles can be understood through a philosophical and humanistic lens, drawing heavily on Adorno's perspective. So I first encountered many of Adorno's writings actually last semester under the guidance of Professor Steve Smith. I took his class and it really opened my thoughts and expanded my perspective as a performer. So viewing music from different angles helped me appreciate the work more and understand and empathize with composers as human beings. I'm extremely grateful for the time that I spent learning from Professor Smith, and I invite you to today's exploration of Beethoven's late music through the eyes of a philosopher, seeing it as a reflection of human experience rather than focusing solely on harmonic or theoretical analysis. So before I play these excerpts from Diabelli Variations, as well as one selection from the beginning of Opus 111 Piano Sonata, I would like to briefly discuss the profound significance of Beethoven's late life and its music in general. So imagine for a moment the concept of sound or lack thereof. Like if someone was born not being able to hear, sound might not hold the same significance. And instead, other senses like touch, vibration, those remain like unaffected. So now consider Beethoven, who lost his ability to hear in the middle of his life and became completely deaf while composing these late works, including Diabelli Variation, Missa Solemnis, Symphony No. 9, Bagatelles, and Antiphonegeliebts, etc., etc. So his deafness added a deep complexity to his creative process, underscoring the immense frustration and isolation he must have experienced. So in the face of adversity, Beethoven seemingly chose a path of liberation from musical conventions. We can see many musical examples in the late Beethoven's music. In a way, we all know these three musical periods of Beethoven clearly divided, and we learn it in music history classes and even within our own experience of performing these musics. So this liberation of Beethoven allowed for a direct expression of his innermost thoughts and emotions through his music. Theodor Adorno, the philosopher, addresses that Beethoven's late works, particularly Missa Solemnis, Diabelli Variation, and Antiphonegeliebts, are characterized by a profound sense of conflict and resolution. This reflects Beethoven's personal struggle to articulate his subjective vision within the confines of established musical structures, ultimately finding resolution in the sheer beauty and intricate complexity of his compositions. So you may wonder why I would like to see Beethoven's music with the eyes of Theodor Adorno. It's because he was deeply interested in human suffering and our emotion in general. He was not just a musicologist or philosopher, but himself was a composer, friend of Alban Berg, student of Schoenberg, and experienced a life of composer. Something now that just crossed my mind, we all know Beethoven's late work served as a bridge between kind of classical era to romantic era. And I forgot his name, it's Bruce Adolphe. He's the lecturer and the composer, and he gave this lecture at CMS, and he said this romantic etymologically is connected to the word Roman, like novel. But then he hints at this kind of instability and constant change, like modulation, inherent in Romanticism. So being unstable or accepting your instability and putting that essence of our emotion into music is where we finally start embracing the idea of Romanticism. Beethoven, with his miserable life and inner turmoil, epitomizes this notion. So his later works, with their moments of silence and longing, seem to express a yearning for absolute freedom and liberation, embodying the essence of the Romantic era. I just realized that I did not share the screen with you guys. I'm sorry. So now I will share the screen with you. So this is Theodor Adorno. And when you hear the music of Diabelli variations, which I will play now for you, I hope you can consider how the music lacks a specific form or maybe contains too many musical forms. Are they well connected or are they not connected? Is there such a continuation or not? And for me, it feels like a patches sewn together in one work of music. It is a variation undoubtedly based on the theme of Diabelli. However, Beethoven creates something beyond mere variation. If you find it hard to connect what I just said now, I will explain in my own words with the help of Adorno's perspective after the performance. So please don't hesitate, and please do let me know if you have any question in the middle of the lecture recital, and I will be happy to answer. So now we can go to the performance. Like I said, the whole performance itself is 1 hour, but I chose some of the variations, and they're like all in 12 minutes. And I hope you can enjoy. Let me play for you. Guys, this is it for playing for some of the excerpts from the variation. So what did you guys think? Because I started with the theme of Diabelli and then went through several variations of Beethoven on its own. It was variation 3, 5, 9, 10, 13, 20, 22, etc. The reason I could actually share with you guys why I chose these specific variations, and then actually the second to the last, right before I play the theme of Diabelli variation again before I finish, I play the beginning of Piano Sonata Opus 111 because there's a lot of interconnectedness between these two pieces. I'm actually going to talk about its interconnectedness after talking briefly about the story of Diabelli variations. So Diabelli variations, Opus 120, was composed by Beethoven, and it was composed for 4 years. Beethoven spent 4 years from 1819 to 1823, based on Waltz by Anton Diabelli. So there are two versions of Diabelli variations. One is by Beethoven, and the other one, it's called in German, it's called Vatersländische Kunstspielereien, meaning the variation was written by 51 composers living in or associated with Austria. So among those composers, there were Franz Xaver Wolfgang Mozart, the son of Mozart, Franz Schubert, Carl Czerny, and Liszt, who was only 11 years old, and etc., etc. Then the second version was written by Beethoven, sorry. So to briefly tell you more about the story of the composition, Diabelli originally asked Beethoven to write piano sonata, and also asked a single variation for his theme. But then Beethoven, rather than writing just one variation or even a single sonata, Beethoven decided to write a journey of a creativity, weaving together 33 variations from seemingly simple, for me, quite not inspiring theme, I would say. It's C major, very simple. And to be really honest, when I first learned this music, I was not really inspired by the theme. So I was really hesitate for a while whether to learn this one and whether it is actually a monumental piece or not. But later I regretted my lack of knowledge and lack of respect for these composers. So, how did you write a piece with such a wide spectrum of style, techniques, and emotions, all while grappling with complete deafness? Also, his variation is, like I said before, 1 hour. So, even if you see the right in the PowerPoint, Beethoven wrote this letter to Diabelli. It's a very short comment, like es liebe diese Ohrstreckbaren welche schüchtig Fleck Meister behind dem Weiß. It means, oh, what a great work. Hats off to this, your Austrian association, and you guys know how to handle the cobbler's patch excellently. And then he wrote his own version of variation. So he has, in the middle of this despair, he was still a very witty and sarcastic man, which I think a very good, which I really like about Beethoven. So even with his sarcasm and humor and despair, he was composing so many works during this time. So if you see this chart, it's just between 1821 and 1826. I wrote very few compositions here you may be familiar with, but he wrote so many chorale music back in this time and songs as well, which I did not put in this chart in detail. And before he worked on Diabelli variations, he already was starting working on his late piano sonatas, opus 109, 110, 111, alongside Diabelli variations. Also string quartet, the last string quartets were on their way. So he was creating music after another and another. So here comes the Adorno's perspectives and view on late Beethoven's music. If you guys have any trouble understanding his perspective or the ideas, you can always let me know. Feel free to let me know. So Adorno believes that composers creating music later in life are not simply responding to age or decline. He says that this late music stands out for its own unique ability to convey profound emotion and mirror both the intricate world and the internal struggle of composers themselves. Departing from conventional rule, it focuses on more personal realm, aiming to express inner emotion. So if he sees this late style as something different from what people usually expect in music, so if you allow me to repeat his thoughts once again, Adorno thinks that late style has more complexity, more contradiction, and deeper thinking. Adorno does not think of the late style as something getting worse, but instead he thinks it's choice that artists make on purpose and with a lot of thoughts. Here, in his essay in Beethoven's late style, Beethoven spät still, written in 1937, he pointed out these ideas he found in Beethoven's late compositions. So you can see departure from conventions, fragmentation and its complexity, human expression, and revolution within musical tradition. So departure from conventions. Adorno saw Beethoven's late compositions as deliberate departure from traditional musical norm and its form. So he noted a radical shift in Beethoven's approach, emphasizing a rejection of established conventions and structures. Fragmentation and complexity. Here, I think it's very interesting. Adorno observes that Beethoven's late works displayed a fragmented nature marked by unresolved tension, abrupt shifts, and intricate complexities. He regarded this as intentional and significant, challenging the coherence and predictability found in earlier musical style. Adorno interpreted Beethoven's late style as a critic of philosophical concepts, especially the notion of unity and totality. He believed that Beethoven's rejection of cohesive structure in his late compositions actually challenged the traditional philosophical idea that everything should neatly come together. So what is this fragmentation and its complexity? Maybe I can give you some example in Diabelli variation. In his earlier variations, everything after one variation and after another variations, it seems like the music keeps going. It connects to one another. It moves to the next variation. For Diabelli variation, there are some variations. In the end, they have fermata, meaning that you have to take time after in the middle of a variation, which for me was very strange to play and to understand. And it is hard for me to kind of shift such mood and confront different style of playing. So I think in the beginning, I found it not really comfortable how to confront these shifts, but more I play and more I understand this fragmentation and just let this complexity sit there and I ride that journey with it, it really helped me out a lot to actually really appreciate and explore Beethoven's late music. Kind of awkward, kind of in the middle of nowhere, kind of sad, but kind of upsetting, but kind of something's there that I cannot even explain. So this goes into the next one, human expression. So Adorno suggests that Beethoven's late music expressed existential tensions and complexities of human experience. He saw the fragmented nature of these compositions as mirroring the uncertainties and contradictions of itself. So to me, that's what I felt as a performer when I played Beethoven, this variation, comparing to the C minor. This variation is very straightforward. C minor goes all the way till the end. Of course, there are C majors here and there, but the tempo necessarily doesn't change drastic. There's no drastic change and a kind of an awkwardness. Somehow this pulse keeps going. But for Diabelli variation, what I felt is that it made me stop in the middle of playing, and then it makes me think, what is coming? And then always something comes and I have to confront something that I did not expect. I wasn't sure of. And it's kind of quite similar how our lives lay out, I think. Something that we cannot expect. There's always uncertainties. We look for the answer, we look for questions, we go through such despair and at the same time happiness as well. So the last one is artistic revolution within traditions. So Adorno viewed Beethoven's late style as revolutionary within the framework of musical tradition. Instead of confirming the established norms, Beethoven's late work challenged the boundaries of conventional compositions. My personal thought here is that as he pushed the boundaries, I think that his ideas and work has stretched out this musically classical residue in their contemporary, like musicians and just music in his time, to the opening to true Romanticism. So back in Beethoven's time, late Beethoven's time, Schubert was there, Mendelssohn was there. They were opening the door of Romanticism from classicism. So for me, in my personal thought and my personal interpretation is that Schubert and Mendelssohn, they pushed the boundaries and then make room for Romanticism more and more and more. So it was quite, of course, there are many dramas and there are many shocks here and there, but it's more like very natural. Whereas Beethoven, in my opinion, he broke the boundaries. Like some people pushing the boundaries, it is not a completely comfortable feeling of it, but once you push it, you feel the push, you feel the boundary going outwards. But Beethoven absolutely broke the boundaries. So there's no such form, there's no such like concrete ideas of what Romanticism was, but Beethoven made it somehow work. And it's, I think, Beethoven's way of confronting or creating his own Romanticism. So next, here, I would like to share a bit more of Adorno's view. So Adorno mentioned a lot in his writing about these two things, concept of conflict and resolution. The second, pushing boundaries that I just explained. So despite these constraints, Beethoven tried to find, tried to find resolution in the kind of beauty of his own composition, achieving heightened level of expressiveness and emotional depth. Adorno described this, stating like Beethoven's concept of conflict and resolution as the maturity of late works of art lies in their capacity to express the inexpressible within the conditions of their appearance. And here, the pushing the boundaries, I think Adorno said Beethoven's role as a pioneer in musical expression, despite facing challenges such as deafness and conventions of his time, Beethoven's late work have left a long-lasting impact on our classical music scene. So Adorno describes late artistic work as catastrophe, illustrating their disruptive and transformative nature, which breaks away from earlier forms and expectation, forging new artistic landscape. So for the conflict and resolution is kind of an internal struggle of Beethoven himself, and he had to face, while this pushing boundary is kind of his musical outcome, that external impact and innovative nature of his late work. So through the conflict and resolution, going through back and forth of conflict and resolution, he was pushing his boundaries and he was breaking the boundaries. Whether he was aware of or not, he kept working on it. Lastly, Adorno's said this: was die radikale Musikeffekt ist es wirklich leidende Menschen. Die seismographische Aufzeichnung des traumatischen Schocks wird zugleich zur technischen Stärke des Spätwerk, meaning that the seismographic recording of traumatic shock becomes, it's kind of it shows the suffering of men. So I think for Adorno, this suffering not only serves as a thematic element, but also influences the structural laws governing the composition, making trauma and disruption fundamental components of the musical expression. Here, as we've seen through Adorno's insights, I would like to move forward and talk a bit deeper into the Diabelli's variation and how Beethoven's innovative spirit is reflected in his approach to music expression. So we'll briefly explore this concept of Musik über Musik and its role in enriching the personal expression in Beethoven's music. So the concept of Musik über Musik, number one, it refers to compositions that explicitly reflect, reference, or rework existing musical works. So this concept involves composers engaging with music from the past or their contemporaries, their variation, quotation, or stylistic imitations, effectively creating a dialogue with the original materials. So this approach can be seen in Beethoven's Diabelli variation, where he expands and transforms a simple waltz by Anton Diabelli into a complex, profound set of variation. I could think about this modern example like Luciano Berio's Sinfonia. His Sinfonia quotes an intricate text and music from various sources. So this approach allows us to see Beethoven not just as a composer, but as a thinker, engaging with and commenting on the music itself. So by understanding these connections, we appreciate not only the technical mastery of these variations, but also their role in a larger musical and cultural convention. And you may wonder why Musik über Musik über Musik. It showed how Beethoven paid such homage to other monumental works and composers in his time in piano literature as well. So I don't know if you do remember what I played. It's variation 22. This is actually a song from Don Giovanni by Mozart in his opera. It's a very short story. Whether it's funny or not, maybe I can share with you. So Beethoven wrote and was working on this piece for 4 years, and Diabelli was waiting for Beethoven to finish this variations, and he was like, "Where's the music? You say you're going to work on the variation, so how far have you worked?" And then he decided to put this variation. What's special about this variation is that he used this Mozart's Don Giovanni theme, but actually the song is about how in the opera, how he was working day and night, kind of indirectly telling Diabelli that, look, I'm working day and night. What do you want? So he put it in his variation 22. And you can see Bach Goldberg variations. It's not just the variation 31. There are, you can see many different musical examples where he really worked on Fugetta, Fuga, and there are so many similarities between these two compositions, and some of Bach invention as well. And J.B. Kramer Etude, I can't really show you the example of it, but they have Beethoven Beethoven brought the exactly same idea of first two measure of Kramer's Etude into his Diabelli variation. It's like it sounds like a complete etude, and he did bring that idea from J.B. Kramer's Etude number 1. And then he did not just bring those music from other composers in his contemporary, but he used his own music. He brought his own music from other composition. He brought them into this variation, like Eroica Symphony or Piano Sonata Opus 110, Piano Sonata Opus 111. I think, you may wonder, like, why Sunmi talking about Musik über Musik when talking about Adorno and late Beethoven's music and his expression. This approach definitely helps us to understand how Beethoven began his composition with ideas that were relatively straightforward and closer to the theme, gradually integrating various musical styles to create such a profound work of art. To me, the idea of Musik über Musik profoundly conveys Beethoven's state at that time. His desire to engage with contemporary musical ideas, his personal struggles, longing for people, his lingering connection, kind of a residue to previous compositions like Opus 111 and 110, and his subtle expression of kind of a drama, like romanticism, without overly like displayed. So I think that this whole composition is kind of for me. Why it's so interesting is that it takes 1 hour to perform, and as a performer who has been trying to perform this monumental work, I find it overwhelming, very overwhelming. In the beginning, I thought it was a very simple variation. So I was like, why is this such a big work? Why is such a big deal? But then more I play, I find it overwhelming, approaching different musical ideas and techniques. So in the midst of these challenges, what I realized more and more that this overwhelmingness is not just musical ideas or technique, but emotional way. I feel lost or miserable in the middle of the variation because I feel like there's no such connection between variations. And for me to seek the way out, I find my emotion becoming more intimately involved. So now we are almost coming to the end. And so our journey through the one of Beethoven's late work, guided by Adorno's philosophical perspective, it emphasizes the necessity of approaching music with a blend of analytical and empathetic understanding. As we reflect on Beethoven's life, marked by personal struggle and artistic triumph, we experience the profound impact of his music, which transcends time and continues to speak to our shared human experiences. Before I close this lecture, one thing I want to sincerely share is that sometimes we do feel like a pariahs. Not pianist Mori pariah, but a pariah. I had this talk with Gil. I had a hand injury this semester, and I was just in my room, like in my bed all day. And then after days and days, I went to see Gil, and Gil was like, "Look, you're not a pariah. You'll be fine." And then I came back to my room and thinking to myself, "Oh, he's saying that I'm not more a pariah, so maybe I'm not important." And then I was just staying in my bed the whole day, days and after days and days, not knowing about the meaning of a pariah. And then a few weeks later, Erwin came to me and he said, "Sunmi, are you sure Gil said pariah?" And I said, "No." I said, "Do you know what a pariah means?" And I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, a pariah is the one who are rejected by society. So I was kind of acting like a person who was completely rejected and abandoned by society. So he wanted to encourage me. And so I was very thankful. And I felt very embarrassed that I did not know the word. So going back to the story that I wanted to close and the lecture is that we do feel like pariah sometimes in life, like we are rejected by society, we are rejected by the people. Sometimes we do experience loss and fear, yet we also enjoy happiness and gratefulness alone or with the loved ones. Perhaps experience something else, ultimately confronting the end of our lives here, there. So as every little patch becomes monumental music like we have seen today, every little variation, not really related well with each other, but became a huge, huge monumental music. Whether filled our life is filled with patches of love, grief, humor, or despair, our life are monumental and very, very special indeed. And I hope you enjoyed my lecture recital, and I hope you enjoyed your your semester, because we're almost done with our semester, probably 1 to 2 more days left until we completely finish it. So thank you so much for coming tonight. And thank you so much for listening to my lecture, being with me, encouraging me. And yeah, I hope you guys
ask for questions.
Okay, before I close, maybe I should ask you if you guys have any question. Question. Any question? Gil, do you have any question?
You didn't talk.
Right.
So do you want to describe that more, a little more? Do you have examples of earlier variations, and even Opus 111, of course,
Yes.
is variation, the last movement.
The last movement, yes. I had everything ready, but then I was worried about the time constraint, because my main concern was to talk about Adorno's view, but I did prepare everything. And what I think whenever
Are they hearing you?
Can you guys hear me properly? I think so. So, I think, can you guys hear me properly? I think so.
Yes, you think so?
Yeah. So,
because you have a soft voice.
do I have soft voice? uh, so, what I think between the late variation and the C minor variation, dum, da, da, dum, bum. The C minor variations, it keeps going. There's no so much of cut in the middle or complete different ideas coming in, because we can sort of hear that theme, da, da, that harmonic
Very easily.
very easily, but not in Diabelli variation, indeed. No, that's why I find it very difficult to play, because once I start playing the first 5 variations, somehow the theme stays with me. But then starting from variation 6, he's using different musical ideas, very different musical melodies and techniques. And sometimes he played the Mozart opera. Sometimes he played like Goldberg variations, kind of a fuga. So sometimes when I played, I became a bit miserable, not really know, am I really playing the Diabelli variation or Beethoven's small music, one after another.
Why did he agree to write these variations?
Okay, this is very interesting. So in the beginning, he said, no, I'm not going to. But then Diabelli asked him, can you write me either piano sonata or just one variation? Why not? Because everybody's writing one for me. But then Beethoven was like, if I'm going to write just one variation, I know I can do better. And he decided to just make his own, because he didn't like the just short variation or single variation will fulfill himself for Diabelli. So he wanted to work on his own variation, which took for 4 years.
Well, didn't he want to see how he can transform a kind of banal and common little tune into something monumental? That's a kind of unusual concept.
Right.
And that's one of the things that makes this piece so special, is that he takes this little, very common, not very interesting theme, and he develops it into a monument.
Absolutely.
And you're right, you played Opus 111, the last movement, which has similarity, even in notes. Right.
This descending line. Do, sol, so, yeah.
So it's exactly the same opening.
I think so. So it was kind of, they were doing it all at the same time. Everything happened all at the same time. Diabelli variation, Opus 111, and even, do you think Opus 110, the beginning, da, ram, bam, bam, ba, but of course it's a third descending. Do you think there is some kind of similarity? Well, not really.
Well, I do. I mean, I think he's always working with small little modules of things to see what he can do with that.
Right.
I mean, all of the last three sonatas share a lot of modules of the same material, really. You can see it through 1, 9, 10, and 11.
Sure.
And I mean, it's kind of the genius of variations in a way. He has also variations through his life. Cello variations in the 1890s, 1790s, excuse me, and Opus 34 variations, the Eroica variations,
right?
All the early 1900, the 1800s, sorry, early 19th century, the C minor variations, variations in sonatas, Opus 26. It's a kind of form that fascinated him,
right?
It seems. And then he's, in this piece, it seems that he wanted to make a revolution in a way about what can be a variation. And no more of this kind of simple hearing the same tune over and over, just hardly transformed. This, he totally transformed it. But the fact that it's variation, it is based on that theme somehow. You have to find it. I mean, it's interesting to find it. Doesn't mean you have to find it.
But it's interesting.
But as a player of the piece, you want to find it, I think.
I think
So do they, any of you have questions?
Any of you have questions? No.
I just have one question. Sunmi, do you think, I'm wondering if I heard it right. Did you say that he was moving away from the idea of having a unified picture of the whole piece towards the end of his musical career? Is that what you said?
I think, yes.
But then you also said that you found yourself liking the piece more as you discovered a deeper connection between variations.
Because there's no such connection. That's what I feel. Like, I feel connected to disconnectedness. I feel connected. I feel very intimate with absolutely no connection, absolute catastrophe, absolute disruptive kind of a form. In the beginning, it's very difficult to play it as a player because you have to keep changing your thoughts, keep changing your techniques, and you have to know where the direction is going. But without any direction, where do you go? But somehow to patch that to soothe the patches, that's what's great about playing this variation. To look for the opportunity, to look for the chance to sew the patch again, like sewing the patch again and again and again.
But do you think Beethoven did not have those patches in mind? Is my question.
I think he did. But if you think about his later life,
Mhm.
he can't hear, right? His life was just always like all over the places, right? You know, he had to go take, you know, cold shower to really wake himself up, wake his senses up. So he was all over the places. So he probably was putting that struggle into musical form. Like one day he would come up with this idea, he would write this idea, and then this idea. Somehow he was kind of looking back on his life. It's kind of a great monument, like looking back his life. So after he wrote such variation, looking back that variation, I'm sure he had that in mind, that it can be a great monument like music.
Good. Just one last thing. Because variations like by themselves intrinsically are, you know, the genre is, it has unification embedded in it, right? Because you are working with the same theme and you are introducing variations upon it. So there is something intrinsically that ties everything together. So I'm wondering, like, what made you think, what makes you feel that there is that kind of disconnectedness? Because there is a theme connecting them. So I'm wondering, like, what is it that gives you the impression of that disconnectedness, despite there being a unifying theme?
Oh, in these variations, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because the ideas are different. Like the musical, like motives are different. The way you use motives completely different. So when we actually, like, for example, when we do play like sonata, or when we do play just variation, we have this theme or harmonic and like harmonic direction. We know where it's going. We can actually see where it's going. We can expect what is going to happen. But with this variation, you can really not expect anything, because in the middle there's fermata. What do? And then all of a sudden different type of music comes in. So it's a very challenging, not just technically, but psychologically as well, to play this very special variation.
Right. Got it. Thank you, Sunmi.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have to go to Owens.
I think he's coming. So
He's coming to this room? Oh, really?
Okay, thank you everybody for joining me tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful evening and wonderful summer. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, get rid of them now.
Ciao. Okay. Nice. Thank you.